Naomi Carter stepped out of the sleek black car and felt the cool evening air brush against her face. She had traveled all day, hopping from one city to the next, meeting with clients and investors. Her mind was full of ideas and plans for Bright Journeys, the hotel chain she had built from scratch. As she walked up the shining marble steps of her flagship hotel, she allowed herself a small smile. This place felt like home. She knew every detail of its design, from the polished brass door handles to the soft glow of the wall sconces in the lobby. She could almost hear the gentle hum of conversation and laughter that would fill the hallways tomorrow morning. Inside, the lobby was quiet at this late hour. A few cleaning staff moved silently in the corners, pushing carts filled with linens. The chandeliers overhead cast warm pools of light on the plush rugs below. Clicked softly against the marble floor as she approached the front desk. Her heart felt light. She had looked forward to this moment all day, a chance to unwind in her own suite, to relax and recharge. The clerk behind the desk looked up as Naomi reached for her wallet. He was young, his namatag reading Carlos. He stared at her briefly, then back down at the computer screen. "May I have your name, please?" he asked, his voice polite but distant. Naomi said. "Naomi Carter, Carter, C-R-T-R. I have a reservation for tonight." She offered her credit card and ID. Carlos took them without a word and began tapping on the keyboard. Naomi tried to keep her expression calm. She had done this 100 times before, though usually someone recognized her and greeted her by name. After a few seconds, Carlos shook his head. "I'm sorry, Ms. Carter, but I don't see any reservation under that name." "Did you book through a third-party site?" His tone was friendly enough, but Naomi felt a sudden chill. "No," she replied, her voice steady. "I booked directly through the Bright Journeys website. I'm the CEO of the company." She paused, letting the words sink in. For a moment, Carlos looked puzzled. He returned to the screen and typed more. Then he said, "I'm sorry, ma'am, but I really don't see it. All of our rooms are booked for the night." Naomi felt her chest tighten. She bit her lower lip. To keep it from trembling, she glanced around the lobby. No one else was at the desk. A few guests sat in armchairs near the entrance, reading or scrolling on their phones. They seemed unaware of the little drama unfolding at the front desk. Naomi took a breath. She had faced tougher challenges in her career than a missing reservation. Yet something about this felt different. It felt wrong. She tried again. There must be some mistake. Let me call my assistant. She stepped back and dialed Malik's number. Her assistant picked up on the first ring. "Naomi, is everything okay?" he asked, concern clear in his voice. Naomi explained the situation in a calm tone. Malik said he would check the system right away and call her back. Naomi hung up and turned to Carlos, who was still staring at the screen with a frown. Just then, the supervisor appeared from behind the desk. He was older, his hair starting to gray at the temples. He glanced at Naomi and then at Carlos. "What seems to be the problem here?" he asked. Naomi repeated her request. The supervisor examined her ID and card, then tapped on the computer. "I'm sorry, Ms." he began, but Naomi interrupted. "My name is Naomi Carter," she said quietly. "I'm the CEO of Bright Journeys." The supervisor's eyes widened, swallowed and muttered, "I'm sorry, Miss Carter. We must have some glitch." Offered an apology that sounded rehearsed. Naomi nodded slowly. She could feel her pulse racing, but she fought to stay composed. She had no desire to lash out or make a scene. She wanted answers, and she wanted this resolved. She looked back at the lobby. The cleaning staff had paused to watch. The guests still seemed oblivious. Naomi cleared her throat. "I just want to get to my room. I've had a long day." The supervisor offered to make calls. He muttered into his phone and tapped on the computer. Behind him, Carlos hovered, shifting from foot to foot. Naomi took a seat in one of the leather armchairs. While she waited, she ran her fingers over the smooth armrest, trying to steady her nerves. After a few minutes, Malik's call came through. He spoke quietly into her ear. "Naomi, I see your reservation here. It was confirmed this morning for Suite 1204. The system shows you as a VIP guest. The clerk must have missed it. Naomi felt a wave of relief, but also a flash of anger. She covered the phone and said to the supervisor, "My assistant says the reservation is confirmed. It's in the system." The supervisor nodded, his face red. "I apologize for the confusion," he said. He handed Naomi her keycard. "Here you go, Suite 1204, on the 12th floor." Naomi took the card and stood up. She waited while the supervisor escorted her to the elevator. As the doors closed, she allowed herself to exhale. For a moment, she pictured herself stepping into her suite, sitting on the edge of the bed and letting go of the tension. But even as the elevator rose, she felt a nagging feeling. She knew this incident was more than a simple mistake, where in the story was a thread of something deeper, perhaps fear or bias that needed to be addressed. She decided that once she settled in, she would speak with her leadership team about what had happened. But for now, she would focus on resting and gathering her strength. When the doors opened on the 12th floor, Naomi stepped out into the quiet hallway. The soft carpet muffled her heels. She slid the keycard, and the door clicked open. Inside, the suite was exactly as she had left it months ago. A spacious living area, a desk piled with blueprints for her next project, and a balcony with a view of the city lights. Naomi set her bag down and walked to the window. The city spread below her in a sea of twinkling lights. She pressed her palm to the glass, feeling a mix of weariness and determination. Tonight, she had been denied entry to her own creation. Tomorrow, she would turn this into a victory for every guest and every team member at Bright Journeys. But for now, she would rest and let the quiet of her suite ease her mind. Naomi woke the next morning with sunlight filtering through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Suite 1204. Every piece of furniture felt familiar: the soft cream sofa, the dark wood desk, the velvet armchair by the balcony. She took a deep breath and reminded herself that this day would be different. Yesterday's mistake was more than a simple glitch. It was a sign that something in her own company had gone wrong. She dressed quickly, choosing a sharp navy blazer and white blouse, and headed down to the lobby to meet Malik and the hotel manager. On the way, she passed guests enjoying breakfast and housekeeping staff arranging fresh flowers in vases. Naomi greeted each person with a warm smile. They looked at her respectfully, though some still seemed surprised to see her in person. Reached the glass-walled conference room by 10 o'clock. Malik stood by a laptop, and across from him sat Jorge, the hotel's general manager. Jorge looked tense, but he rose to his feet as Naomi entered. She gave him a nod of greeting.
Malik
Clicked through slides on the screen. "I pulled the system logs," he said. "Here's what happened last night." He showed how the front desk terminal had an outdated software patch. One table in the database wasn't syncing guest names properly, and it flagged certain profiles as unverified. Naomi leaned in to see the timeline. The clerk Carlos checked in 20 guests before her without issues. Died. But when Naomi typed her name, the query returned empty. The system then displayed a generic overbooking message. So on the surface, it looked like every room was taken, Malik explained. Naomi examined the chart carefully. "How long has this patch been missing?" she asked. Malik pointed to the date. "From 2 months ago," he said. "We rolled out the nightly update schedule, but this hotel was offline for 1 weekend. I must have missed reapplying this patch to the flagship location." Naomi closed her eyes briefly. A simple oversight had prevented her, the CEO, from checking in. She pictured herself standing at the desk, confused and hurt. Now she felt a surge of determination to fix not just the software but the system that let this happen. Jorge cleared his throat. "I take full responsibility," he said. "As general manager, I should have ensured every location got updates on time." "I'm sorry, Naomi." His apology sounded sincere. Naomi studied his face. She knew he cared deeply about the brand and the guest experience. "Thank you, Jorge," she replied. "I know you run a tight ship. This was a rare slip.
Ow.
Make sure it never happens again." She paused. "But there's more here than software. I felt something in the way Carlos looked at me, like he didn't believe I belonged here." Jorge shifted uncomfortably. I'll talk to him, he said. We'll schedule bias awareness training for all front desk staff. Naomi nodded. Good start, she said, but I want to dig deeper. I want to hear from the team themselves. She turned to Malik. Can you set up a focus group this afternoon? Invite a mix of staff, front desk, housekeeping, bellhops to share their experiences and suggestions. Malik tapped his notepad. Absolutely, he said. I'll find volunteers and prepare some guiding questions, Naomi allowed herself. A small smile. She liked Malik's energy. He had grown with the company and understood her values. After the meeting, Naomi made coffee in the lobby and chatted with early guests, observing their interactions with staff. She noticed a woman at the concierge desk, checking travel details, and a bellhop carrying luggage with a friendly nod. Each encounter was smooth and polite. She realized most team members embodied Bright Journey's spirit of care. The glitch and the clerk's hesitation were exceptions, not the rule. That thought comforted her, but it also reminded her that one weak link could damage the entire chain. By midday, Jorge escorted Naomi to a smaller meeting room. 10 staff members sat around a long table, some smiling nervously, others simply curious. Malik introduced the session. We want your honest feedback, he said. No punishment, only progress. Your voices matter. Naomi watched as Carlos sat down near the back, fidgeting with his tie. Jorge had pulled him aside beforehand to explain that this was a safe space. Carlos gave a quick nod and glanced toward Naomi. She offered him an encouraging look. Naomi began. Yesterday, I experienced a problem at check-in. It got resolved, but I want to know how it felt for you. The room grew quiet. One of the staff, Lena from housekeeping, spoke first. I wasn't here then, she admitted, but I've heard of glitches like that before. We get the software updates, but sometimes we don't get the explanations for new prompts or flags. She tapped her finger on the table. When you see an error message, you worry. Is it my fault? Will I get in trouble? That resonated with others? Carlos shifted in his seat. Carlos cleared his throat. I'm new, he said. I joined. Last month, I'd never seen a VIP flag before. When Naomi told me she was CEO, I thought maybe someone was playing a prank. He looked down. I should have asked more questions instead of assuming the system was right. Naomi smiled gently. Thank you for sharing that, she said. No one is perfect, and first impressions matter. I appreciate your honesty. The other staff members looked relieved that he had opened up. Another team member, Raj the concierge, raised his hand. Sometimes we don't see the faces behind the titles, he said. We get used to the routine. Guest checks in. We help. But when the brand owner walks in, it can be intimidating. We need clearer guidance on how to handle those moments. Naomi nodded.
Oh, you're right,
she said. We need a protocol for executive visits and emergency scenarios. Should feel seamless for the guest and empowering for you. She jotted notes on a legal pad. The focus group continued for an hour. Staff members shared small frustrations. Unclear messages on the screen, not enough training on special statuses, and fear of making mistakes under pressure. Naomi listened, asked follow-up questions, and took detailed notes. She realized these were the voices that often went unheard. In the past, her leadership team had relied on surveys and third-party audits. This direct conversation was richer and more revealing. As the session ended, Naomi thanked everyone for their courage and honesty. She promised to share a summary of the proposed changes and to involve them in the rollout. Carlos approached her as the others filed out. Miss Carter, he said softly. Thank you for doing this. I feel like I can be part of the solution. Naomi smiled. You already are, Carlos. Bright Journey succeeds because of people like you. Later, Naomi met with her head of it, Priya, to plan a full audit of the update process. She told Priya about the missing patch and the human impact of that gap. Priya promised a new alert system and a failsafe that would notify both IT and management if any hotel missed an update. Naomi also asked Jorge to partner with HR to design role-play scenarios for bias training, so staff could practice handling identity-based mistakes in a supportive environment. By the end of the day, Naomi returned to her suite, feeling both tired and energized. She reviewed her notes and outlined a week-by-week action plan. Software fixes, training sessions, protocol drafts, and follow-up focus groups. Each step was designed to strengthen the system and the culture. She wrote a brief email to her entire leadership team, sharing what she had learned and inviting them to join her in making Bright Journeys truly reflective of its values. Before bed, Naomi stood by the balcony again. The city lights winked below. She thought about how a simple mistake had revealed hidden gaps in technology, gaps in communication, and gaps in empathy. But she also saw opportunity by listening. Learning and leading with compassion, she could turn a moment of pain into a turning point for the company she loved. She inhaled deeply and whispered to herself, "Tomorrow, we build a stronger Bright Journeys." Then she let the night calm. Her, ready to face whatever came next? ChatGPT said. Naomi spent the next morning reviewing her notes and fine-tuning the action plan. But a quiet voice in her mind reminded her that true change would come only when people felt part of the solution. She decided it was time to bring together everyone who had been involved in the incident: Carlos, the front desk clerk; Jorge, the general manager; and the supervisor who first handled her check-in. She called them into the glass-walled executive boardroom at 3 o'clock. The hour when the lobby was calm and the sun cast warm light through the large windows. As Carlos and the supervisor, Alina, took their seats at the long, polished table, Jorge stood behind them, his posture firm but supportive. Naomi greeted them with a gentle smile that spoke of trust and purpose rather than blame. She began by thanking them for their time and honesty the day before. She told them how much she valued each of their roles in Bright Journeys, how she saw Carlos greeting guests with warmth and Alina ensuring behind-the-scenes details ran smoothly. She spoke in simple, clear words about how the missing software patch and the hesitation at the desk were opportunities for growth. Her voice was steady and calm, filled with the same compassion she had shown in the focus group. The room felt safe. Neither Carlos nor Alina looked defensive. Instead, their eyes held a mix of curiosity and relief that they would be part of the next steps. Naomi then shared a story from her own early days in business. She described how she had once walked into a rundown motel in a small town, dreaming of building a hotel empire. The owner at that time had doubted her, a young woman with no experience in hospitality. Yet Naomi persevered, learned from each mistake, and turned that motel into a thriving and beloved by travelers. She paused and looked at Carlos and Alina. "I know how it feels when someone doubts you," she said softly. "But I also know how much you can accomplish when you have the chance to set things right." Her words held weight because they came from someone who had lived them. In that moment, Carlos straightened up in his chair, and Elena's shoulders relaxed. Next, Naomi invited them to imagine they were guests arriving late at night. She asked, "What would you want to feel when you walked through those doors?" "Safe. Welcome. Seen." Alina glanced at Carlos and then offered an answer. "I would want someone to look me in the eye and say, 'Welcome home.'" Carlos nodded, adding, "I would want my name to matter, to know that someone cares about my story." Naomi listened intently, making small notes on a notepad. She encouraged them to share more memories of moments when they themselves had felt like guests, not staff times when kindness and attention had made a lasting impact.
Oh.
Each story they told seemed to breathe new life into the conversation. After hearing their memories, Naomi shifted to the practical side. She said, "I want us to work together to create a new welcome ritual. A moment when every guest, especially VIPs and executives, feels acknowledged without making others feel ignored." Alina suggested a simple greeting card placed in the room with a handwritten note from the front desk team. Carlos offered to learn a few phrases in different languages, helping guests from all over feel more at ease. Jorge proposed a quick meeting each morning where the front desk team would review any special arrivals and share personal details like favorite beverages or trip reasons so they could tailor the greeting. Naomi smiled, excited by their ideas. She realized that this co-creation would build stronger bonds than any top-down mandate. As they brainstormed, Naomi asked open-ended questions. How can we make technology feel more human? What small signs of respect can we weave into each interaction? How do we turn a moment of confusion into an opportunity for connection? Each question felt like a gentle invitation rather than a demand. Carlos and Alina leaned forward, eager to answer. Their contributions were honest, practical, and heartfelt. Naomi jotted them all down, promising to incorporate the best ideas into staff training and technology updates. She assured them that their names would be part of the program credit where credit is due. Toward the end of the meeting, Naomi proposed a pilot event, a welcome reception in the lobby 2 nights from now. She asked them to design the greeting station together and to choose a special welcome drink that reflected the local culture. Alina suggested a signature mocktail made with local fruit juice, and Carlos volunteered to prepare welcome letters with unique stamps. Naomi agreed and said she would introduce the event personally, making sure every team member knew how vital their role was. She then invited them to join her at a quick lunch upstairs to celebrate this first step. The mood in the room had shifted dramatically from tension and apology to excitement and ownership. Over sandwiches and fruit in the hotel cafe, Naomi shared stories of other companies that had turned setbacks into strengths. She described a hotel in Tokyo that launched cultural classes for guests after a small translation mishap, and a bed and breakfast in Paris where the owner baked awards week, cakes every month to thank staff for exceptional service. Each tale sparked laughter and admiration from Carlos and Alina. The informal setting made them feel more like partners than employees. Naomi could see in their eyes that they believed in her vision and in their own ability to bring it to life. By the time the lunch ended, Naomi felt a warm sense of connection with her team. She walked back to her suite, reflecting on how gathering allies had transformed a painful incident into a moment of unity. She thought about the lobby reception and how it would set a tone of warmth for future guests. But she also knew that this was just one step. Real change required follow-through, technology updates, bias awareness workshops, and regular meetings to keep the ideas alive. She decided to send a quick message to Malik summarizing the meeting and asking him to schedule the next check-in in 2 weeks to see how the pilot went. Later that afternoon, Naomi wandered through the hotel's corridors, stopping to greet housekeeping staff bellhops and the concierge team. She shared a laugh with the pastry chef who was testing new dessert recipes and asked the night security guard about his favorite part of the job. Everyone smiled, noting the genuine interest in their work. Naomi believed that leadership was not just about decisions made in boardrooms, but about presence and listening in everyday moments. As she returned to the executive suite, she felt the spark of possibility lighting up within the walls of Bright Journeys. Before the sun set, Naomi took a moment on her balcony to watch the city's evening lights come alive. She thought about Carlos practicing those welcome phrases, Alina designing the greeting cards, and Jorge guiding his team with renewed confidence. She knew that by gathering allies, by turning those who once hesitated into champions of change, she was building a stronger, more compassionate hotel. She closed her eyes, breathed deeply, and whispered to herself, "This is how we journey forward, together." Then she opened her eyes, ready to plan the next chapter of Bright Journeys' story. Naomi watched the clock as the golden hour light poured into the lobby. It was almost midnight, the time she had chosen for her welcome reception. She had sent out invitations earlier that evening, simple cards with bright blue ink and the words, "You're invited," a celebration of hospitality. Everyone on staff had pitched in. Carlos had practiced his language phrases until he felt confident. Lena had designed the welcome letters with care. The bellhops had polished the brass railings, and the baker had created tiny fruit tarts with the local juice Naomi had requested. Now the lobby looked transformed. Tables were arranged in a semicircle around the reception desk, each draped in crisp white linens and topped with small vases of wildflowers. Soft lanterns hung from the ceiling, casting a warm glow over the scene. As the final guests mingled, and the pianist began to play a gentle melody in one corner. Naomi stood beside the reception desk, wearing a simple black dress that spoke of understated elegance. She took a breath and looked around at her team. Carlos stood to her left, holding a tray of welcome drinks mocktails with exotic fruit and mint. Next to him was Alina, carefully placing handwritten letters on each lobby table. Jorge hovered nearby, his eyes bright with anticipation. Naomi smiled at each of them. She knew this moment would not only delight their guests, but show the world what Bright Journeys truly meant. At exactly 12 o'clock, Naomi tapped her champagne glass, sparkling water instead of wine to include everyone, and raised it. The soft melody of the piano faded. Guests turned toward her and the staff. Naomi's voice was calm, but carried through the space with quiet authority. "Welcome," she said simply. "Tonight we celebrate more than a hotel. We celebrate the spirit of welcome, of kindness, and of connection. You are our guests, and you are our friends." She motioned to Carlos, who stepped forward and repeated the greeting in French. Then Alina repeated it in Spanish. Carlos added a cheerful bienvenidos, and Alina said bienvenido. The guests smiled, some nodding, some clapping softly. Surprised and pleased by the multilingual welcome, Naomi continued, "I want to thank everyone here, our team, and our guests for being part of Bright Journeys. This moment belongs to all of us." She handed the glass to Jorge, who offered a few words in his own voice. "Thank you, Naomi," he said. "But the real thanks belongs to our staff. They are the heart of this hotel." He bowed slightly. To Carlos and Alina and the rest of the team joined him in applause. Naomi felt her chest fill with pride. She knew this would be a night her team remembered forever, and she whispered to Carlos, "Let's begin the check-in ceremony." It nodded and invited the next arriving guest to the reception desk. The guest, a gentleman in a gray suit, smiled as Carlos handed him a welcome letter, folded and sealed with a bright blue sticker. Alina nodded and offered a fresh mocktail. The guest opened the letter, read the note, and his eyes lit up. "You," he said warmly. "This is such a thoughtful gesture." He raised his glass to Carlos and Alina, who returned the salute with shy smiles. Naomi watched as the guest turned to hug his wife, who had chosen a nearby seat. The scene felt like a perfect illustration of why she had called this reception. Music from the piano shifted to an upbeat tune. A staff member distributed tiny fruit tarts on silver trays. Jorge had selected a local berry that only grew in this region, and the pastry chef had carefully glazed each tart with honey. Guests tasted the treat and murmured their approval. Naomi walked among them, chatting about their journeys, their favorite parts of the hotel so far, and their plans for tomorrow. Each conversation was genuine and warm. She introduced herself not as the CEO but as Naomi, a fellow traveler and host. People laughed when she mentioned how easy it was to feel at home when someone greeted you in your language and offered you a special treat. As the reception went on, Naomi noticed Carlos showing a guest how to say hello in their native tongue. The guest, an elderly woman from Germany, chuckled as she repeated the sounds. Nearby, Alina knelt by a family with small children and gave each child a welcome sticker shaped like a small star. The children beamed before running off to play quietly in a corner. Naomi realized that every small act was part of a larger tapestry of care and connection. She thought back to the moment when she had been denied a room. That moment had hurt her, but it had also shown her the cracks she needed to repair. Now those cracks were filled with empathy and creativity. Halfway through the event, Naomi asked the pianist to shift to a gentle jazz melody. She thanked the musicians and invited them to join her on a small stage area she had set up between the sofas. Soft lighting highlighted the spot, and she motioned for them to stand. One by one, the front desk team came forward: Carlos, Alina, and another clerk named Maya who had helped behind the counter that night. Naomi introduced them to applause. "These are the people who make Bright Journeys come alive," she said. "They have shown courage, creativity, and grace." The team took a small bow, faces flushed with pride. Naomi felt tears sting her eyes, but she blinked them away. This was a celebration, not a sorrow. After the applause died down, Naomi turned and held up a glass. "To the future," she said. "May every guest who walks through our doors feel as welcome as we feel proud to serve them." Guests toasted and clinked glasses. The sound was soft but meaningful. Naomi felt a gentle warmth spread through her. She thought of the challenges ahead: technology fixes, bias training, protocol updates, but in that moment she knew her team was ready. They'd learned to see mistakes not as failures but as chances to grow stronger and kinder. The reception slowly wound down as the last guests drifted toward their rooms. Carlos packed away the trays. Alina collected the used glasses. and Jorge tallied the feedback comments guests had left on small cards at each table. Naomi joined them. "How do you feel?" she asked. Alina exhaled with a smile. "I feel proud," she said. "I've never seen the lobby so alive." Carlos wiped his brow and laughed. "I think I'll sleep with my welcome phrases on a note card under my pillow." Jorge looked at Naomi. "This was a brilliant idea," he said. "Thank you for trusting us to help lead it." Naomi's lips curved into a soft smile. "Thank you for believing," she replied. Later, Naomi slipped into the elevator with Carlos and Alina. They rode up to the 12th floor in silence at first, each lost in thought. When the doors opened, Naomi led them to the balcony. The city lights shimmered below like distant jewels. She placed a hand on each of their shoulders. "Tonight was just the beginning," she said. "We've shown what we can do when we work together. Tomorrow, we build on this. We write new policies, improve our systems, and keep listening to our guests and to each other." Carlos and Alina nodded. "We're with you," Carlos said quietly, every step of the way. Naomi looked at the two of them and felt hope fill her. This was leadership born of compassion, not command. It felt stronger than any top-down order. Before they parted, Naomi handed each of them a small Paquita thank you note and a voucher for a free night's stay at any Bright Journeys hotel. "For you," she said, "'cause you earned it." Alina's eyes filled with tears as she thanked Naomi. Carlos shook his head in disbelief, a smile spreading across his face. Naomi watched them go, then gazed out at the skyline. The city stretched on, alive with movement and possibility. She knew the real test would come when the reception was a memory and daily routines returned. But she also knew her team had tasted the magic of shared creation. They carried it now in their hearts. As Naomi stepped back into her suite, she felt a gentle pride settle in her chest. She had taken a moment of pain being denied a room and turned it into a catalyst for unity and joy. The lobby had become more than a place to check in. It was a stage for human connection. She sat by the window, the city lights beckoning. Tomorrow, the work would continue. New software patches, training sessions, updated protocols. But tonight, she allowed herself to savor success. She whispered to herself, "We have turned the tables in the best way possible." Then she closed her eyes and let the quiet of the suite lull her into a deep, deserved rest. The next morning, Naomi woke to a soft knock at her door. She opened it to find Jorge and Malik with fresh coffee and a stack of guest feedback cards. The lobby was already alive with the quiet hum of breakfast and gentle greetings. Naomi accepted. The cup thanked them both and followed Malik down to the reception area. There, Carlos and Alina were back at work, but their smiles were brighter than usual. Guests paused to greet Naomi, praising the reception from the night before. One couple said the multilingual greeting had made them feel truly at home, while another guest raved about the berry tarts. Naomi listened to each comment and felt her heart swell. This feedback would guide the next steps. After breakfast, Naomi gathered her executive team in the conference room. She laid out the guest cards, each one a small story of gratitude and joy. "These voices belong to the people we serve," she said, looking at the faces around her. She proposed a clear plan. First, launch the system updates, so no hotel missed a patch again. Second, roll out bias awareness workshops, led by Carlos and Alina as co-instructors. Third, integrate the new welcome ritual into every property's daily routine. She asked her team to assign deadlines and resources, making sure each task had an owner. Everyone agreed, energized by the success of the pilot. They left the meeting with a shared commitment to follow through. Later that week, the IT department completed the audit. A new alert system would send a notification if any location missed an update. Priya, the head of IT, demonstrated the dashboard to Naomi and Jorge, showing how they could track compliance. In real time, Naomi asked for automatic reminders to both local managers and headquarters staff. Priya nodded and began drafting the schedule. Next, Naomi met with HR to finalize the bias awareness training. She insisted that the sessions include role-play exercises so staff could practice real scenarios. The HR director, Lucia, smiled and promised a program that was both informative and interactive. Naomi appreciated the care taken to make training feel supportive, not punitive. By the end of the week, Naomi was ready to share the story more widely. She worked with the marketing team to create a short video. It would feature highlights from the reception. Carlos greeting guests in 3 languages, Elena placing welcome letters, Jorge leading the team applause. Naomi spoke on camera about how a simple mistake had revealed deeper opportunities for learning. She emphasized gratitude to the staff who had stepped up so brilliantly. The film ended with guest voices sharing their delight. Naomi reviewed the draft and asked for subtitles in multiple languages. She wanted every viewer anywhere to connect with the message. On Monday, Bright Journeys posted the video on social media and the company website. Within hours, comments poured in. People praised Naomi's leadership, the genuine hospitality, and the quick action to address bias and technical glitches. Local news outlets picked up the story. A business magazine interviewed Naomi about turning adversity into advantage. She spoke simply about listening and learning. She credited her team for their courage and creativity. The article closed by calling Bright Journeys a model for hospitality companies everywhere. As Naomi scrolled through the coverage, she felt proud and mindful. The real work was ongoing, but the world had taken notice. Meanwhile, staff across the hotel chain began sharing their own stories. A front desk clerk in San Diego wrote a blog post about how the training helped her handle a nervous guest more kindly. A housekeeper in New York described how a new update fixed the room status glitch that had caused confusion. These voices formed a new chorus of empowerment. Naomi encouraged them by liking and sharing these posts. She also created an internal newsletter called Journeys Together, highlighting best practices and personal achievements. Each issue featured a staff member's story, giving them a platform and building community across locations. Past, Naomi returned to the flagship hotel for a surprise check-in. She posed as a guest and arrived unannounced. When she reached the desk, Carlos greeted her by name with a warm smile and a quick bow. He handed her a welcome letter, now part of the standard routine, and offered the signature mocktail. Naomi nodded appreciatively and asked quietly, everything going smoothly. Carlos assured her that the system was working and the team felt more confident than ever. Naomi walked away toward the elevator, feeling a deep sense of accomplishment. The lobby felt like a living testament to what could happen when leadership led with empathy and action. That evening, Naomi returned to her suite and looked out at the city lights. She thought about the journey. A simple check-in error had sparked a chain of conversations, collaborations, and celebrations. She recalled the faces of her team, Carlos practicing phrases, Elena designing the letters, Jorge supporting every step. She remembered guest smiles and heartfelt thanks. Naomi took out her journal and wrote a few lines. Leadership begins with listening. Change happens when we choose connection over judgment. Hospitality is more than a service. It is an act of shared humanity. She closed the journal, feeling a quiet joy. Before bed, Naomi sent a message to her leadership team. Thank you for turning yesterday's pain into today's progress. She added a line for each person, acknowledging their contributions. As she hit send, she felt warmth spread through her chest. She knew there would be future challenges, new hotels opening, evolving guest needs. Technology changes, but she also knew the guiding principle was now clear. Treat every person, guest or staff, with respect, curiosity, and care. With that, Compass Naomi Carter believed Bright Journeys would continue to grow stronger and more welcoming every day. And with that comforting thought, she turned off the lights and let herself drift into sleep, ready for the next adventure.